London-listed Chesterfield Resources owns 3 copper project areas in Cyprus. It's an area linked with copper production since the earliest Bronze Age. Chesterfield's main focus is the Troodos West project, where copper prospects have been identified. Martin French is Executive Chairman. He joins us now. Welcome, Martin. It's good to talk to you. I want to get on to the copper side of things and also take a look at your relationship with the metal and so forth. But I'll also begin, first of all, with the big question. Why copper particularly? What is it that interests you?
Well, I think like a lot of us in the mining business, copper is seen as the metal of the future. And as everybody knows, it's very closely linked to this mega trend of electric cars. So, for example, a normal combustion engine car on average has got about 20 kilos of copper, which is mainly the wiring, etc. A Tesla Model 3 has got 106 kilos of copper in it. So it's 5 times as much. And if you believe in this mega trend, then you're going to understand there's going to be a lot more copper in demand, and not only for the cars themselves, but also for the charging infrastructure, etc. And basically all things electric. So as the world progresses and technology progresses, people need more copper for anything electric.
Yeah, and the next question is why Cyprus particularly, which is the area that you've got?
Well, the funny thing, the word copper comes from the Greek word for Cyprus originally, and it was in classical times the world centre of copper. And it was also a very big producer of copper in the 1960s and 1970s, which not a lot of people really fully comprehend. And that all finished when the Turks invaded in 1974, and the whole copper industry pretty much stopped dead because it was a war zone. Shortly afterwards, the Vietnam War ended. There was a lot of demand for copper from munitions, and so that fell away and the copper price fell away. Then they discovered the big porphyry systems in Latin America, so the centre of copper moved to Latin America, and Cyprus has been somewhat neglected. But now there's a much bigger renewed interest in copper. It made a lot of sense to go there. And we pretty much acquired all the licenses in the prospective areas that we can. So.
Well, let's take a look at those. I said at the top there are 3 areas that you're interested in. Explain what they are. I said the Troodos West prospect you got identified copper deposit there, haven't you?
That's right. And actually, if you go to Cyprus, there's a mountain range called the Troodos Mountains. And you've got to remember, Cyprus is not a very big country, and the mountain range isn't particularly big either. You can drive past it in about an hour. And within that mountain range, the prospective area is probably only about a quarter of the mountains. And so we took a big chunk of that through a reverse takeover 13 months ago now, which is called Troodos West. There are a lot of big old mines there, big old open pits, etc. And we did some preliminary drilling there before Christmas and had some very good results. And not just copper, we found a lot more gold than we thought we were going to find. So,
yeah. Where's your focus going to be? Is it just Troodos West, or are you going to expand into the other 2 areas?
Well, on the back of the drill results, we then decided to kind of pretty much grab as much prospective land as we could. So we went from about 50 square kilometres of licence areas to 237, which we have permitted or on their application, and the 2 new big areas which we've called Troodos North and Discovery South. We're going to be doing more drilling in Troodos West very, very soon, but we're quickly turning our attention to those other big areas as well to start exploring.
What sort of money have you got on the balance sheet? Because it's not cheap doing this, and of course you are spread over at least 3 areas.
Yeah, we've got about £1.5 million. We have very light kind of general overheads. You know, we've all put our own money in, and something unusual about this company is all the directors are investors in the company, and we've all bought shares at the same price as all the other investors. So we haven't got cheap shares in this at all. We're all sitting on the same side of the table. We're lean and mean with our money. We have very small offices here in London. You know, we don't pay ourselves salaries, etc. So the general overheads are very low. As much money as possible goes into the ground.
Who else is on the team with you?
Well, we've got some really, really senior world-class geologists, which is very unusual for a company of this size. So on our board is a guy called Dave Cliff. Dave used to be head of exploration Europe for Rio Tinto. Right. We've hired our COO, who's a guy on site in Cyprus called Mike Parker. And Mike was with First Quantum for 20 years, which is a really famous, successful mining company. He was head of DRC, he was head of Peru, which are very big jurisdictions. He was involved in 2 very big discoveries in Africa as well. So he's a super senior guy. One of our shareholders, who's also an advisor, was one of the founders of Lundin Mining, a very senior geo there as well. So we have these super world-class guys on our exploration team.
Just want to go back to your holding while you're here in this hot seat. What percentage of the company do you own then?
I've got 4% roughly, and I put £200,000 into the company. So I mainly went in on the 7.5p round, and the shares are only sort of 4.5p, etc. I also bought shares in the market at around 6p.
Yeah.
So like the other major shareholders, we're in at a higher price than the share price right now. And we're certainly ambitious to make money out of our shareholders. So
yeah. Well, let's take a look at the share price. You say it's been in the market just over a year, and of course you are main market listed, aren't you? You're not an AIM company.
That's right. Yeah.
What's the reason for that?
It's called a standard listing on the main board. We think it's a kind of simpler, actually kind of cheaper way of doing it, and
let's just go back to the question about copper, and I started off by saying why copper, and you gave us some really good reasons as to why we should be looking at copper. I mean, there is a fair bit of copper around at the moment, and I believe that it is currently oversupplied the market. And of course it's easily recyclable as well. That's the other thing about copper.
Yes, but there's a lot of demand for copper, and I think from next year the forecasts are saying there's going to be more demand than there is supply. Right. There are very few new discoveries of copper. And Cyprus actually is a very famous place in the sort of geological world. A lot of geologists go there for field work, etc. Everybody knows Cyprus well. It's in the middle of the Mediterranean, it's in the EU. If we make a discovery in Cyprus, I think it's going to be pretty high profile.
Do you anticipate, or let me ask you about the calendar, when do you anticipate coming back to shareholders and saying, look, we've got it, we've proved it up, and we're going to be able to make something of this?
Well, we're at the moment, if you look at our announcements, we're starting to announce targets, etc. And just on that, we'll have a new website actually up today, and a new presentation next week.
Right.
And actually, we're going to be announcing a new target probably this week, I think. And a lot of the drilling we did before Christmas is leading us to our sort of second round of drilling, which will be coming up very, very soon. We're just talking to the drill company at the moment about exactly when to bring drill in, but we're announcing targets. And we've got some pretty interesting targets. The first one actually is near an area where we drilled nearly 30 metres of gold at 1 gram per tonne gold. There's a historic drill hole where I think they got 42 metres of gold. And we believe that's all faulted down, and there's copper lying on top of it. And we ran a geophysics survey in the last month, and that looks a very promising target, which we'll be drilling pretty soon.
So where do you hope to be by the end of the year? Clearly out of funds if you get all the drill holes done that you expect to get done.
Well, no, we certainly won't be out of funds. I mean, I think we'd want to try and keep around about £1 million in the bank, so we don't want to be one of these companies that sort of always kind of running low and having to sort of come rushing back to the market. Yeah. We have some very big shareholders. Our shareholder base is quite unusual. When we raised money last July, we raised £2 million, about half of which came from some mega wealthy Canadian mining kind of investors. And the other kind of, the rest of the money came from kind of some of my contacts who are other CEOs of mining companies, etc. So it wasn't the usual sort of London kind of junior mining IPO. It was very much kind of senior mining types who will be supportive. Yeah.
You have a history of being involved with small cap companies. I mean, anybody that knows your history will know that. How do you like to raise money in the market? I mean, with the market as it is at the moment, I mean, it's a bit tight money for small cap companies. How do you go about raising money?
Well, I think you keep in communication with people, you bring people out to site, and I think particularly when people come out to our site in Cyprus, you go up into the mountains, there are old mines like everywhere, you're in big old open pits, and it's clearly very prospective. And in the sort of 70s and before that, people really discovered copper by looking at copper sticking out of the surface. We call them surface expressions, and then they'd follow those ore bodies down and mine them. We have a lot more modern techniques where we can look under the big lava flows that are out there in Cyprus and discover the ore bodies that they couldn't see, but we can see with our technology. And so people who come out and see that and walk the ground so understand that intuitively. So I think that's really what we are trying to message to the market as well.
Yeah.
And we haven't really been talking to the market until very recently, and because we're coming up for this new round of drilling. Now we're explaining who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, well, we look forward to hearing some results as and when they come through for the drought. Good luck for the rest of the year. It's good to talk to you, Martin. It's good to catch up again with Martin French, Executive Chairman of Chesterfield Resources.